The crystalline corridors of the Cerinthian High Citadel rang with the soft chimes of Princess Lysara's laughter as Cole, the human ambassador, adjusted the ceremonial exosuit. The air was thick with the aroma of polished tritium and the faint charge of unseen energy fields. Cole, tall, with a jagged scar across his cheek and eyes the color of stormy skies, stood beneath the shadow of the ancient Aegis guardians, statues of legendary alloy, their surfaces reflecting the shifting light. Though his purpose was negotiation, not exploration, Cole felt the weight of history pressing in. He caught the sidelong glances from the assembled Cerinthian courtiers, their sapphire eyes flickering beneath elaborate headpieces. Murmurs, barely more than whispers, rippled through the hall as they observed him, a solitary human standing amidst legends. Princess Lysara, luminous in her iridescent tunic, her blue-tinged skin and long pointed ears catching the glow, walked at his side. The court's whispers were measured and distant, their gazes heavy with generations of custom. Lysara's silver eyes sparkled with both caution and intrigue. "You study our relics so intently, Ambassador Cole," she remarked, her voice a gentle, lilting cadence that danced through the charged air. "Most visitors are content to admire, not to understand." Cole's lips curled in a wry half-smile. "I've always believed there's more to a place than its surface. These guardians, they feel awake, even in slumber." Lysara's laughter lingered, brightening the solemnity of the chamber. She motioned toward the central exosuit, more elaborate than the rest, its core studded with facets that shimmered with hints of internal light. "Legend claims only a true Cerinthian, attuned to our heartstone, can awaken the Aegis guardians," she said, pausing before the towering artifact. "Would you care to attempt the impossible?" Her tone was teasing, but curiosity danced at its edges. Cole's gaze lingered on her, then shifted to the guardian. He could feel the weight of the court's expectation pressing upon him. 100 watching eyes, some skeptical, others wary, a few alight with hope. "If the princess herself invites me, how could I decline?" he said, bowing his head in a gesture both respectful and unmistakably human. He stepped forward, heart thundering in his chest. The alloy surface of the guardian gleamed beneath the crystalline chandeliers, the intricate lines and glyphs winding across its frame. Cole stretched out his hand, hesitating for a heartbeat before his skin made contact with the cold, unyielding metal. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a low vibration rippled through the hall, so subtle it was felt rather than heard. The glyphs ignited with a sudden surge of azure light, arcing in patterns along the guardian's body. The exosuit shuddered, shifting on its pedestal, its dormant mechanisms stirring with life after centuries of silence. A hush fell across the chamber. The Cerinthian courtiers stiffened, eyes wide in disbelief. Lysara's composure faltered, her lips parting in shock, the gash above her eye darkening as her blood quickened. Cole's hand remained pressed to the suit as the living alloy uncoiled and flowed, enveloping him in a radiant shell that pulsed with otherworldly energy. He felt the power surge through his veins, the boundaries between man and machine blurring into one. Advisors broke rank, voices rising in panic. Human envoys, standing at the rear, exchanged glances of alarm and awe. The Aegis guardians, silent for generations, now thrummed with a renewed purpose. And at their center stood Cole, encased in armor that was never meant for an outsider. Lysara's interest deepened, her gaze fixed on the ambassador. There was fear in her eyes, but also something else. A spark of hope, a glimmer of destiny unfolding before her. That night, the citadel was a hive of hushed urgency. Lysara summoned her closest counselors to her private chamber, the air taut with the scent of ozone and old parchment. Elder Tyvon, his robes trailing, demanded answers in a thunderous voice. How could an off-worlder accomplish what the blood of Sorinth could not? "This is an omen!" Scholar Mirren, her fingers stained with ink and crystal dust, pored over ancient scrolls, her voice trembling as she spoke of prophecies, of a visitor from afar who would rekindle the guardians when the world darkened. "The fade is spreading," she whispered, "and the signs converge." Lysara listened, her mind racing through centuries of lore and the haunting specter of the fade, a mysterious energy decay gnawing at the heart of Sorinth. Her decision came with the quiet certainty of leadership. "Cole will remain under my protection," she decreed, her voice brooking no dissent. "He will be studied and safeguarded." Later, as night shrouded the citadel in shimmering blue, Lysara stood behind the glass of the observation suite, watching Cole as he slept beneath the hum of alien machinery. The faint glow of the awakened exosuit cast shifting patterns across his face. She felt more than duty stirring in her chest, a quiet, growing fascination for the man who had just changed her people's destiny, and perhaps her own. Within the research chambers, Cole became the focus of relentless analysis. The exosuit, now dormant, still hummed faintly beneath his skin, a subtle vibration he sensed more than felt, a whisper of power biding its time. Banks of crystalline data terminals filled the laboratory, their screens flickering with symbols that shifted like liquid light. Cerinthian scientists, faces shadowed by the soft blue glow, circled him in rotating teams, studying the readings from intricate neural crowns and crystalline diodes that mapped his thoughts in real time. At first, their glances were guarded, voices clipped with protocol. Cole endured the barrage of tests with a patience born of necessity, answering questions, submitting to scans, tolerating the odd discomfort of Cerinthian instruments that seemed to probe not just flesh, but memory. But soon, their wariness gave way to awe. His neural patterns adapted swiftly, resonating with the exosuit in ways their models could not predict. Some called him anomaly, others miracle. Above it all, Lysara watched from the upper mezzanine, her silhouette framed by the pulsing halo of the data array. Though her posture remained regal, chin lifted, hands folded in her lap, her eyes betrayed a storm of emotion, curiosity, pride, and something more elusive, shadowed by responsibility. "The Guardian reacts to your thoughts with uncanny precision," Lysara noted one afternoon, as a simulation concluded and fresh data cascaded across the screens in a symphony of colored light. "It senses your intentions, even those you don't voice." Cole, seated on the analysis dais, flexed his hands experimentally. The dormant exosuit responded with a faint shimmer along his forearms, as though remembering the energy it once unleashed. He grinned up at Lysara, his scar creasing with the movement. "Maybe it just appreciates a fresh perspective, Princess," he replied, winking at a nearby technician. "We humans are full of surprises." A ripple of laughter, hesitant but genuine, moved through the chamber. The tension, so palpable on his first day, had begun to dissolve. Each test brought new revelations. The exosuit mapped his neural impulses, adapting to his emotional states, even anticipating his next move. The Cerinthian scientists, once content with rigid procedures, now asked for his opinion. He offered insights, proposed experiments, and challenged their dogma with gentle irreverence. As days blurred into one another, the conversations between Cole and Lysara softened. What began as formal reports became spirited debates, then easy exchanges over shared meals. She admired his ingenuity, his ability to see patterns in chaos, his refusal to accept the limits of tradition. He, in turn, was drawn to her intellect, her incisive questions, the quiet fire that flared when she argued for her people. One evening, after a particularly difficult simulation, a full-spectrum test that left him sweating and breathless, the main energy array shuddered and died, plunging half the lab into darkness. The scientists scattered, searching for the source of the failure. Cole, undeterred, knelt beneath the humming conduit, hands moving with practiced ease. He coaxed open a crystalline panel, recalibrating the tritium flow by touch and intuition alone. Sparks danced along his fingers, and with a surge of effort, the lights returned, bathing the chamber in steady blue. The Cerinthians stood in stunned silence. Lysara's gaze lingered on him, her composure wavering for just a heartbeat as gratitude flickered in her eyes. Scholar Mirren, poring over ancient diagrams and modern readouts, gasped as lines of data coalesced into a new pattern. "Look here," she called, overlaying glowing schematics atop centuries-old parchment. "The energy signature, the star lace. It's not just a myth, it's a network, a cosmic current woven through reality itself. And the exosuit, Cole, he can perceive it." The room hushed as the implications settled over them. Lysara summoned the court, her voice taut with urgency and revelation. They gathered beneath the domed ceiling, advisors and elders ringed in solemn silence. Lysara's words rang clear, her tone steely. "The fade is not an attack from without, but the result of our own hubris, our ancestors' reckless attempts to harness the star lace." She paused, her gaze sweeping over faces both proud and fearful. "The Guardians went dormant to prevent catastrophe. The fade is the universe's slow retribution for Cerinthian arrogance." Shock rippled through the assembly. Elder Tyvon's fists clenched atop his staff. Scholar Myron bowed her head, haunted by the weight of revelation. Lysara stood resolute, though in private her resolve faltered. The legacy of her ancestors pressed upon her, guilt and duty intertwining until she could barely breathe. Late that night, Lysara sat alone in the shadowed garden beyond the laboratory, moonlight tracing silver patterns on her tunic. She pressed trembling fingers to her brow, fighting back tears. The burden was nearly unbearable. How could she lead her people when every choice seemed to echo past mistakes? Footsteps crunched softly on the crystalline path. Cole's silhouette appeared, outlined by the gentle glow of star lamps. "Lysara?" His voice was low, hesitant. She looked up, startled by the tenderness in his gaze. He knelt beside her, not as a subject or ambassador, but as an equal. "Every civilization has its regrets, Lysara," he murmured. "What matters is what you do now." She searched his face, looking for judgment, but found only quiet understanding. When he offered his hand, she hesitated, then accepted, her cool fingers threading through his. A spark of comfort passed between them, gentle, but undeniable. After that night, the rhythm of their days changed. They worked side by side long after the official experiments had ended, their sessions stretching into the early hours. The research shifted from formal inquiry to collaboration, tracing the star lace's filaments, searching for ways to heal the fade. Sometimes their conversations strayed, wandering from science into shared fragments of childhood. Lysara spoke of climbing the crystal cliffs as a girl, of forbidden laughter in the shadow of the Guardians. Cole, in turn, described the rain-swept fields of Earth, the scent of petrichor, and the stories his mother told him of distant stars. They laughed together over the strangeness of their worlds, the oddities of courtly etiquette and human blunders. There were moments, fleeting but electric, when the air grew charged. A hand brushed against a shoulder and lingered, a glance stretched a heartbeat too long. In the quiet after the others had left, they found themselves sharing silences that spoke more than words. Lysara's laughter, once cautious, became unguarded. Cole's irreverence softened to warmth. One night, as they studied the Starlace's fractal diagrams, Cole's hand covered hers as they traced the same arc of light. Their fingers interlaced, and for a moment, neither pulled away. He looked at her, truly looked, and she met his gaze, silver eyes wide and searching. "Do you ever regret it?" she whispered. "Letting yourself care for a world not your own?" Cole shook his head, his thumb gently stroking her knuckles. "Sometimes a place chooses you, Lysara. Sometimes a person does." Her breath caught, and in that suspended instant, the boundaries of protocol and tradition melted away. But not everyone welcomed the change. In the labyrinthine corridors beneath the citadel, a faction gathered in secret. Cloaked figures whispered in the language of old grievances, their voices sharp with zealotry. They called themselves the Custodians, a radical sect sworn to restore Cerinthian purity and erase the stain of outside interference. They watched the bond growing between Lysara and Cole, saw it as a threat not just to tradition, but to the very fabric of their world. To them, the outsider was an aberration, a living symbol of all that had gone awry. Their eyes glinted with resolve as they plotted in the shadows, intent on restoring the old ways, no matter the cost. Above, in the quiet laboratory, Lysara and Cole leaned closer over the glowing star-lace diagrams, their hands still entwined. Neither sensed the storm gathering in the depths below. For now, there was only the gentle thrum of possibility, and the fragile hope that together they might yet rewrite the fate of a world. The fade worsened, threatening collapse. Ships failed in mid-transit, drifting powerless into void and silence. Settlements flickered out across the continent-spanning Starlace network, first in distant outposts, then closer, until even the Citadel's own sectors dimmed, plunging neighborhoods into uneasy dusk. Panic rose through the highest ranks. Generals barked into dead calms, engineers pored over blank screens, and rumors surged in the marble halls, fear sharpening every whispered word. Within the Citadel's command center, Lysara and Cole stood shoulder to shoulder at the heart of crisis. The great Starlace holomap, once alive with flowing light, now pulsed with growing darkness, threads unraveling, regions failing. The Guardians loomed at the chamber's edge, inert and impassive, their alloy faces reflecting the uncertain glow. Lysara's hand hovered near the control panel, silver eyes wide with dread and resolve. Cole stood with his palm pressed to the Guardian's chest plate, the faint thrum beneath his skin echoing the Starlace's pain. He gasped softly, eyes unfocused, as the suit flared with spectral energy. The fade pressed in, a silent scream stretching across the cosmos, anguish that was not his, but now ran through him. "The suit shows me the convergence points, Lysara," he murmured, voice taut with urgency. "We can restore the flow, but it demands direct action, immense energy, perfect timing. Only I can do it." Lysara turned, searching his face. "Are you certain? If you miscalculate—" "There's no time left for caution," he interrupted gently, pain and determination mingling in his storm-gray gaze. "If we wait, the Starlace collapses. This is the only way." She hesitated, breath catching. "Then let me stand with you. I won't watch from a distance as our world crumbles." Cole reached for her hand, squeezing gently. "Your trust is what keeps me steady, Lysara." That night, Lysara called the council to session. The chamber crackled with anxiety, voices rising in protest, advisors clinging to tradition. Elder Tyvan's eyes blazed with worry. "Entrust the fate of Sorinth to an off-worlder? We barely understand what he is, what he's become." Lysara's voice cut through the clamor, clear as the chime of a Heartstone bell. "Cole is Sorinth's only hope. He alone can read the Guardians. He alone can reach the Starlace. I trust him, with my life and yours." Her authority brooked no dissent. One by one, the council fell silent, their fear yielding to the conviction in her words. Preparations began at once. Cole submitted to rigorous training, the exosuit fusing ever more closely to his mind and body. He learned to shape energy fields, to sense the subtle currents of the Starlace, to withstand its volatile surges. Scholar Mirren mapped the convergence points onto crystalline tablets. Elder Tivan, still mistrustful but committed, devised backup contingencies. Lysara was always near, her presence a constant comfort amid the storm. She reviewed schematics with him, debated tactics, and sometimes simply sat in silence as he recovered from the suit's draining demands. Their partnership became seamless, a flow of ideas and support. One evening, after a particularly grueling simulation, a test run that left Cole reeling from energy backlash. They retreated to a high balcony, the city sprawled in darkness below them, pinpricked by only a few stubborn lights. Cole leaned heavily on the railing, breath ragged. Lysara stood beside him, her hair swept by the night wind, her gaze lingering on his profile. "You bear a heavy weight, Cole," she said softly, her words barely louder than the whisper of the breeze. "The fate of a world, perhaps more." He turned to her, eyes weary but clear. "So do you, Lysara. The hopes of your people, the burden of every ancestor's mistake. I only carry this because you trust me to." She studied his face, the scar that marked him, the lines etched by recent trials. "I haven't felt hope like this in generations," she whispered, voice trembling with vulnerability. "I was taught to lead, to endure, but never to hope. Not like this." He stepped closer, closing the space between them. "You give me hope too, Lysara. More than this suit, more than any plan." Her hand rose, hesitating only a moment before brushing the scar above his cheek, a touch at once regal and achingly gentle. The gesture was intimate, almost reverent. Cole's fingers found her jaw, tracing the elegant line of her cheek, feeling the shiver that passed through her at his touch. The air between them grew thick with longing, heavy with all that had been unsaid. He leaned in, drawn by the gravity of her presence. Lysara tilted her face up, meeting him halfway. Their lips met, cool and warm, alien and familiar, a collision of difference and desire. The kiss deepened, slow and electric, as her hand slid to his shoulders and his hand found the nape of her neck. For a moment, the world beyond the balcony faded. The failing star lace, the council's doubts, even the gnawing fear of the fade. There was only the taste of hope and fear and longing, the silent promise they made in that breathless instant, that they would stand together, whatever the cost. Cole pulled back just enough to rest his forehead against hers, their breaths mingling. "We'll do this together," he whispered. "We'll save your world." Lysara's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, her smile as bright as starlight. "Our world, Cole," she corrected softly. "Ours." Hand in hand, they watched the city below, knowing that dawn would bring danger and sacrifice. But for now, wrapped in each other's embrace, they allowed themselves the fragile peace of hope and the certainty that even as the fate of worlds hung in the balance, they would not face it alone. They descended on Myr's Reach, the Fade's heart, a world suffocating under dying forests and a shroud of corruption. The shuttle swept low over fields of withered grass, landing with a heavy jolt amid tangled roots and rotted trunks. The sky above was the color of bruised steel, and every breath seemed filtered through decay. Cole, armored in radiant blue, felt the suit's energy hum along his spine, each step planting him more deeply into alien soil. Lysara, her iridescent skin half hidden beneath reinforced combat gear, checked her sidearm, eyes sharp and searching. Their small team fanned out, Cerinthian guards and human technicians, faces grim, weapons at the ready. They moved as one through the ruined outskirts of the settlement, passing shattered walkways and relics choked by blackened vines. Each building sagged under the weight of the fade, windows weeping trails of oily condensation. Beneath the ancient arboretum, once the green heart of Myr's Reach, now a twisted silhouette, waited the convergence point. It was there, Scholar Mirren had told them, that the Starlace's fracture ran deepest. Cole led, the Aegis Guardian's sensors painting flickering paths in the darkness. Lysara matched his pace, their shoulders nearly touching, silent communication passing between every glance and gesture. A shriek tore the silence. Shadows erupted from the ruins, twisted drones, their forms warped by corruption, appendages jagged and twitching. Lysara barked a command. Her guards formed a perimeter, firing precise bursts of ion light. Cole's suit responded before he thought. A shield of energy bloomed, scattering drone projectiles and azure ripples. "Left flank!" Lysara shouted. Cole pivoted, arm raised. The suit unleashed a pulse, vaporizing a drone mid-leap. Lysara spun, firing at another, her aim unerring, her face set in fierce determination. A sudden quake split the ground. From the fissure burst a monstrous six-legged beast, its body slick with sickly phosphorescence. Luminous eyes fixed on them, unblinking, predatory. It howled, a sound that vibrated bone and soul, and lunged with terrifying speed. "Cole!" Lysara cried. "Lysara!" He moved, the Aegis Guardian transforming instinctively. Alloy limbs blurred as he intercepted the beast, shield flaring. The creature's jaws clamped down, but the suit held, resisting the unnatural strength. Cole twisted, driving an energy blade into its torso. The beast shrieked, staggered, then retaliated, claws raking the ground. Lysara dashed forward, loosing two precise shots into the creature's eyes. It reeled, blinded, and Cole seized the opening. He surged forward, energy arcing from his gauntlets, and struck with a thunderous blow. The beast collapsed, twitching, then lay still, smoke rising from its ruined body. Their team regrouped, breathless but unbroken. Cole turned to Lysara, voice trembling. "You saved my life." She flashed him a fierce, fleeting smile. "You saved all of ours." They pressed on, descending deeper into the Arboretum's undercroft. Roots dangled from the ceiling like skeletal fingers. The air grew colder, denser, as they approached the nexus. At last they entered a vast chamber, the walls slick with corrupted sap. In the center hovered the energy core, a sphere of blackened crystal, pulsing weakly, veins of sickly light webbing the floor. Cole stepped forward, the suit thrumming, guiding him to a console fused with ancient glyphs and new decay. "This is it," he said, voice taut with resolve. "The suit will interface. I'll need cover until the cycle completes." Lysara nodded, rallying her guards. "Defensive positions." "Nothing breaches this ring." Cole knelt, pressing his palm to the node. The exosuit systems leapt to life, translating the glyphs, channeling blue-white energy into the fractured core. Pain lanced up his arm, his nerves afire with star-lace current. He gritted his teeth, focusing, willing the network to remember itself, to heal. The core resisted, darkness fighting back, each surge threatening to consume him. Sweat beaded on his brow, the suit trembled, straining at its limits. A shout echoed through the chamber, boots thundered on the stairs. Rebel Cerinthian soldiers in blackened armor flooded the room, weapons drawn, eyes wild with fanatic rage. Elder Tyvon strode at their head, his voice ringing with accusation. "The princess is compromised! The outsider must be stopped!" he bellowed, raising a disruptor. Lysara stepped between Cole and the rebels, back straight, chin high. "Stand down, Tyvon. Your fight is with me." Tyvon's eyes burned with betrayal. "You bring ruin to Sorinth. Step aside or be treated as a traitor." "Never!" Lysara spat, defiance sharpening her words. Weapons fire erupted. The chamber became chaos, bolts of light carving the darkness, the thunder of energy against alloy. Cole's suit, responding to his desperation, flared brighter than ever. An impenetrable barrier blossomed around himself and Lysara, absorbing blast after blast. He looked up, vision blurring with strain. "I need more time." Lysara's guards surged forward, subduing the rebels in a flurry of disciplined violence. She fired, stunning a traitor before he could break the barrier. Tyvon lunged, blade drawn, but Lysara parried, her movements precise and unyielding. "Why do you side with the aberration?" Tyvon hissed, desperation in his voice. "Because he is Sorinth's hope," Lysara answered, eyes fierce. "And you are its past." A final shot rang out. Tyvon fell, unconscious, and the last rebels surrendered. Silence settled, broken only by the pulsing whine of the failing core. Cole sagged, nearly overwhelmed by the current. Darkness crept at the edges of his vision. "Lysara." She was at his side in a heartbeat, gripping his shoulder, her voice an anchor. "Stay with me, Cole. I believe in you." Her faith steadied him. With a roar of effort, Cole refocused, pouring his will and the suit's power into the dying core. Blue energy raced along the Starlace's arteries, burning away corruption, forcing the Fade to retreat. The chamber filled with blinding light, shadows shattering, the air charged with the sweet ache of renewal. For a breathless moment, there was only radiance. Cole's scream dissolved in the roar of restored energy. When the light faded, he knelt by the core, Lysara's arms around him, the Starlace alive once more. The Fade retreated in a surge of pure energy. Myr's reaches skies clearing as life returned. The roiling shroud above broke apart, revealing the faint gold of dawn and the first shy glimmer of returning stars. Sap bled fresh and green from the newly healed roots. The arboretum's canopy stirred with the breath of wind, and for the first time in memory, birds sang from hidden boughs. The chamber still echoed with the aftermath of Cole's sacrifice. His ragged breaths, the slow dissipation of blue fire from the suit's veins. Lysara rushed to Cole's side, sliding over the debris-strewn floor. Her visor lifted, revealing her face unmasked, no longer the distant princess, but simply Lysara, shining with relief and gratitude. "You did it," she breathed, her voice trembling as she touched his armored arm. Her fingers curled over the glowing alloy, as if anchoring herself to the reality of his survival. Cole's chest heaved with exhaustion. He managed a crooked smile, sweat gleaming on his brow. "Not alone," he rasped, meeting her gaze. "Never alone." She laughed softly, tears bright in her silver eyes. "I told you Sorinth would remember your name." The team gathered, wounds bandaged, eyes wide with awe and hope. Cole leaned into Lysara's support as they made their way from the Arboretum's heart, her hand never leaving his arm. Where decay had reigned, new life unfurled, radiant and green. The Fade's corruption withdrew, leaving behind the promise of healing. They returned to the Citadel at dusk. Word of the restoration had spread faster than light, drawing crowds to every landing platform and open corridor. Where once suspicion and wary glances shadowed every step, now Sorinthians pressed forward with shining eyes and outstretched hands. Children tossed petals at Lysara's feet. Elders bowed low, their voices lifted in ancient songs of thanks. Cole, still glowing faintly within the Guardian's embrace, walked beside Lysara, the bond between them as visible as the blue fire threading his armor. He caught her glance, soft, full of secrets, and she squeezed his hand in answer. Elder Tyvon stood at the head of the welcoming party, his expression transformed by humility. He stepped forward, lowering himself in a deep bow. "Ambassador Cole," he said, his voice resonant with new respect. "The old ways have given way to hope. Sorinth owes you everything." Cole inclined his head, feeling the truth of Tyvon's words ripple through the assembled crowd. He felt no triumph, only relief, and the ache of having borne something immense and survived. He looked to Lysara, his anchor, and saw that her eyes reflected not only gratitude, but longing. That night, the Citadel blazed with celebration. Lanterns floated on the breeze above the crystalline towers, their colored lights drifting like wishes through the city. Music spilled from open windows, laughter echoed in every hall. Yet amid the revelry, Lysara withdrew quietly, leaving the throne room's festivities behind. She moved through shadowed corridors to her private quarters, pausing only once to glance back at the distant sound of celebration. Cole followed minutes later, fresh from the recovery suite. He'd shed the Guardian's armor, revealing the man beneath, scarred, strong, undeniably human. When he entered, Lysara stood waiting, her blue-tinged skin shimmering in the gentle light, her silver hair loose around her shoulders. She wore a simple robe, the iridescence of its fabric catching every subtle shift of her body. She dismissed her attendants with a word, leaving only silence and the soft hum of the guardian, now dormant in the corner. Lysara approached him, her steps light but purposeful. Cole's breath caught at the sight of her, so regal in the court, so achingly real here. "Are you all right?" she asked quietly, searching his face for signs of pain. He smiled, reaching to tuck a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "I am, thanks to you." His voice was hoarse, roughened by exhaustion and feeling. She pressed her palm to his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heart. "You've given my people a future, Cole. Her words faltered, emotion threatening to overwhelm her. "I've never known gratitude or longing like this." He closed the distance between them, hands settling at her waist. "You don't have to thank me, Lysara. Not with words." She smiled, eyes shining. "Then let me show you." She pressed into his embrace, her body melting against his. His hands traced the delicate curve of her back, mapping the lines of muscle and bone beneath her skin. She shivered at his touch, her breath growing shallow, lips parting with anticipation. Their differences vanished, blue and bronze, alien and human, as passion overwhelmed hesitation. Cole bent, capturing her lips in a deep, all-consuming kiss. Lysara responded in kind, fingers threading through his hair, drawing him closer until there was no space between them. The heat between them grew, each movement slow and reverent, as if they were learning a new language in the meeting of skin and breath. He lifted her gently, carrying her to the low couch by the window. The city's lights cast shifting patterns over their bodies, illuminating every caress. Lysara's robe slipped from her shoulders, revealing the subtle bioluminescence of her skin, the pulse of life that matched his own heartbeat. Cole ran his hands over her, reverent, his touch worshipful and careful, until she arched into him with a sigh. Their kiss deepened, hungry, desperate, a mingling of hope and need. He explored every inch of her, learning her responses, her soft cries and shivers. She, in turn, traced the lines of his body, marveling at the strength and warmth that had saved her world. They moved together, bodies entwined, lost to everything but sensation and trust. Their breaths mingled, their heartbeats found the same rhythm, and every barrier fell away. It was not only relief, nor only celebration, but the fulfillment of every promise, every silent vow exchanged in the heat of battle and the hush of midnight confidences. At the edge of vision, the guardian glowed softly, its light a gentle benediction. It bore witness to their union, warrior and princess, savior and sovereign, no longer divided by tradition or fate. When at last they stilled, Lysara lay curled against Cole's chest, her hand resting over his heart. He pressed a kiss to her brow, breathless and content. She smiled, tracing the scar on his cheek with a single finger, her gratitude and longing now wordless but infinite. The burdens of the galaxy faded, if only for a night. In one another's arms, they found peace, fragile, fierce, and utterly real, while outside, a world was reborn. The healing was swift. In the days that followed the battle at Mur's Reach, the star lace pulsed with new life, its blue-gold veins lighting up the skies above every settlement and forest. The Fade, once an all-consuming threat, vanished like a bad dream at sunrise. Saplings sprouted where decay had choked the roots, waterways ran clear, and the great citadel's crystalline towers gleamed with renewed brilliance. The Cerinthian realm, humbled by its brush with oblivion, embraced change with a fervor that surprised even its most stubborn elders. Lysara, hailed throughout Sorinth as a savior, stood at the forefront of this new era. Her voice rang across the council halls and public plazas, championing openness, reconciliation, and the promise of a future where the mistakes of the past would never again be repeated. She spoke not only as a princess, but as a leader reborn, her gaze clear, her words laced with humility and hope. Cole, once only a visitor from Earth, became much more than an ambassador. His role evolved with every passing day. He was a bridge, a living symbol of unity and hope. The story of the human who had awakened the Aegis Guardians spread like wildfire, inspiring songs, murals, and the reverent curiosity of children who gathered in crowds to catch a glimpse of him as he walked the palace corridors. Cerinthians who had once regarded him with suspicion now greeted him with open smiles, eager for every scrap of his knowledge and wit. Collaboration flourished. Human engineers worked side by side with Cerinthian scientists, blending the intuitive brilliance of Earth's technologies with the intricate elegance of crystal and song. New hybrid ships took shape in the orbital yards, and the first joint expeditions set out across the starlace, charting regions long lost to the fade. At the university, Lysara and Cole taught together, her lectures on starless harmonics weaving seamlessly into his lessons on Earth history and interstellar diplomacy. The Aegis Guardian, once dormant and shrouded in legend, became Cole's constant companion. No longer merely a weapon, the suit was a beacon, its gentle radiance a living testament to hope, resilience, and connection. Children followed its glowing path through the plazas, and elders placed their hands reverently on its alloy surface, as if seeking forgiveness and blessing at the same time. The formalization of the alliance was the greatest celebration Sorinth had ever seen. Delegates from dozens of worlds flooded the capital, tall, elegant Cerinthians in iridescent robes mingling with humans in dark dress uniforms, their laughter echoing beneath banners of blue and gold. The grand amphitheater overflowed with beings of every shape and color, their languages woven together into a tapestry of anticipation. Cole stood with Lysara at the ceremony's center, the Aegis Guardian gleaming on his shoulders, a living symbol of the journey that had led them here. Elder Tyvon, now an advisor, chastened and changed, presented the treaty with hands that trembled, his voice thick with emotion. "Let it be known," he declared, "that humanity is no longer an outsider, but an essential partner in the fate of our stars." Lysara took Cole's hand as the crowd erupted in celebration. "We did this together," she whispered. "You and I." He squeezed her fingers gently, smiling that crooked, irresistible smile. "And we'll keep doing it, for as long as the star lace shines." Their relationship, once guarded by secrecy and shadow, became an open truth. There was no more room for hesitation or fear, only the slow, beautiful unfolding of trust and devotion. They learned each other's worlds. Lysara, with her poised wisdom and quiet strength, showed Cole the intricacies of Cerinthian etiquette, the subtleties of their ancient songs, the wild beauty of the northern cliffs. Cole, in turn, taught her the playful irreverence of human humor, the warmth of shared stories by firelight, the resilience that had shaped him from childhood. Their days were busy, filled with meetings, ceremonies, and the constant press of galactic politics, but in the quiet moments, they found peace in each other's presence. Sometimes, after long hours spent negotiating trade routes or mediating disputes between rival factions, they would slip away to the high garden, sharing wine and laughter as the sun set in a riot of color. Cole reveled in Lysara's easy wit, the way her eyes sparkled when she teased him, the way she listened, truly listened, when he spoke of Earth and its lost wonders. At night, their quarters became a sanctuary. Lysara would curl against Cole beneath a canopy of starlight, her hand resting over his heart. They spoke of the future in whispers, of children who might one day unite their worlds, of voyages yet to come. Their love, tested by fire, grew deeper with every shared trial and triumph. They faced challenges, old prejudices, new threats, the lingering scars of the fade, but they faced them together, their patience and laughter a shield against the darkness. Sometimes Cole donned the guardian for ceremonies, its blue glow casting long shadows across the council floor. He stood beside Lysara as equals, her hand in his, their partnership unmistakable. The suit's gentle hum echoed the bond between them, a resonance of trust and unity. Every time he looked into her eyes, he saw not only the leader who had saved a world, but the woman he loved, brave, vulnerable, and utterly extraordinary. One evening, as the Alliance's first year drew to a close, Cole and Lysara stood on the balcony of the highest tower. Below, the city shimmered with life and light, its people celebrating under banners of peace. Stars stretched overhead, a million points of possibility. Cole, clad in the Guardian's luminous armor, drew Lysara close, his voice soft with wonder. "Do you ever think," he asked, "how impossible this would have seemed when we first met?" Lysara smiled, her silver eyes reflecting the heavens. "Sometimes the impossible is just the future we haven't imagined yet." He laughed, pressing his forehead to hers. "With you, I think I can imagine anything." She laced her fingers through his, her touch a silent promise. "Then let's face it together. Every dawn. Every storm." The Guardian's hum wrapped around them, a song of hope, of everything they had won and everything they had yet to build. And so, as the night stretched on and the stars wheeled overhead, Cole and Lysara stood side by side, ready to face the future as equals. The suit's gentle light shimmered between them, a promise of love and unity, a new beginning for two worlds, two hearts forever joined.